It's three that look real attractive to me right now. Camron, Mase, and Sean.
Ray J might have pushed things a little too far this time, because the moment he stepped up and called out Camron and Mase for what they were saying about his sister, everything started to spiral, and not just publicly but physically too, with reports suggesting his health took a serious hit right in the middle of all this chaos. And now the streets are buzzing heavy, conversations everywhere, timelines flooded. People trying to piece together how something that sounded like casual podcast talk turned into a full-blown situation that nobody can ignore anymore. So yeah, we gotta really break this down properly, because this didn't just happen out of nowhere. This built up slowly and then exploded all at once.
I was special, you know? He came in and wanted to be special. So I had to let him be special.
It all started with a podcast. Nothing flashy at first. It's just two seasoned voices talking, laughing, reminiscing. It's flipping through old stories like it was nothing serious. Like background noise playing while people scroll past. No warning signs, no dramatic build-up. Just another episode, another conversation that felt regular, almost forgettable. And for a brief moment, it really looked like it would stay that way.
No lies told. He was Shaq.
Okay.
He was the champion. He was the MVP.
Just content floating around with no real consequences. But then somewhere else, far from that studio, a phone lights up. Somebody hears what was said, and that somebody is not the type to ignore things, not the type to brush it off or laugh it away. This is someone who reacts, someone who stands on respect. And the second that clip reached him, everything shifted instantly.
But I definitely did want to be special. I definitely, but I had no idea.
And the calm turned into tension real fast. Now suddenly 3 names are locked into the center of this storm: Camron, Mase, and Ray J. But before even focusing on them, there's one name that changed the entire direction of this situation the moment it was mentioned. One name that carried way more weight than anyone in that room seemed to realize at the time. It's good. And that name is Brandy Norwood, a Grammy-winning icon, a voice that defined an era.
So I think he knows who it is. I'm not gonna expose him.
Someone whose legacy is stamped deep in the culture, and most importantly in this moment, someone who is not just a public figure, but family. Ray J's sister, and that connection alone makes everything different instantly. Because if you understand how things move in this space, if you've been around hip-hop culture long enough, then you already know there are lines you don't casually cross, especially not on a public platform.
So I was so excited because this is my dream person.
Right. Talk about Brandy.
Brandy.
Right.
Poor kid, Brooklyn, watching MTV, watching Moesha, watching her on BET.
And one of those lines is speaking on another man's family in a way that can be taken sideways. Because once that happens, it's no longer just conversation. It becomes personal. It becomes something that demands a response. And in this case, that response came quickly and loudly. Because Ray J is not built to sit back quietly when it comes to protecting his own. And that energy was felt the moment he stepped in. But before everything escalated into threats, statements, and that one line that people keep replaying over and over,
I'm gonna go to Plan B. I'm about to hit the Breakfast Club.
it's important to really understand what was actually said and why it hit the way it did. Because without that context, it just looks like random drama, and this is far from random. This is calculated reactions to something that crossed a line. This is a situation with receipts, clips, and a full timeline that shows exactly how things unfolded step by step. And to really grasp the weight of it,
As a dreamer, I'm like, man, if she was the no shine, got that.
Right.
So when I came up, she was in the crosshairs. Like, I was sniping.
you also have to understand who Camron and Mase are, beyond just podcast hosts. Because these aren't random voices chasing attention. These are Harlem legends, figures who helped shape an entire era of New York hip-hop. From the style to the sound to the attitude, the whole Dipset movement, the influence that reached far beyond music into fashion and culture.
Here's what I do. I went on my new app Ryan Ball and I went big on it because it was ugly.
These are men with real history, real credibility, and years of respect built into their names. And now they've transitioned that presence into media, sitting behind microphones, breaking things down, joking, reacting, and building a new lane as commentators, which makes everything they say carry weight whether they intend it to or not. They give opinions. That's what they do. And most of the time, nobody even questions it, because that's the whole point of the content. But there's always been one rule sitting quietly in the background.
That ain't Shine. You know that ain't Shine.
This is not the first time that Shine told this story, right?
A rule that doesn't need explaining to men with their level of experience. That rule is simple. You don't bring another man's family into your stories like it's open territory. Just don't. Especially not on a public platform where everything gets clipped, replayed, and sent across the country in seconds. Because once that line gets crossed, it stops being content and starts becoming something personal real fast. And that's exactly what happened here, even though on the surface, it looked like just another regular episode with nothing out of the ordinary happening at first.
I felt like it didn't get nowhere. Cause I said, yo, I said the most disrespectful to these bitch ass, right?
The setup felt normal, the energy casual. People in the room just vibing. Even Shine was there, posted up. And as the conversation kept moving, it somehow drifted toward Brandy Norwood. And that's when Mase saw his opening and stepped right into it like it was his moment. Like something he'd been waiting to say for a long time. And he delivered it with that calm, almost careless confidence.
Keep that same energy, you hypocrite.
Completely unaware that what he was about to say was already setting off a chain reaction he couldn't see coming. Because somewhere else a phone was about to light up and change everything. And the word he used, just one single word, but a heavy one. A word that carries meaning without needing explanation. A word that does a lot of talking without saying too much. That word was special, not official. Not serious, not defined, just special. And in this culture,
Let's talk about it. So basically, the fact when they were sitting and having a conversation about Shine dating Brandy and Mase dating Brandy, you called me because you was like, yo, it was corny.
that word hits different because everybody knows it's one of those labels that avoids details while still implying everything. It fills in the blanks without actually saying them out loud. And that's exactly why it stood out the moment it was said, because it left just enough room for interpretation to make things uncomfortable. And just in case anyone listening still didn't fully catch what he meant, Mase didn't stop there. He doubled down in a way that only someone from that era could, pulling out a basketball analogy that instantly clicked with anyone paying attention.
Online, and then I saw them just laugh.
Comparing the situation in a way that referenced dominance, hierarchy, and position without spelling it out directly. Bringing up Shaquille O'Neal as the anchor, the undeniable presence, the one you build everything around. And then placing himself into that structure in a way that made it clear where he thought he stood.
That's it. It didn't even take me 5 minutes to go, y'all some hoe ass and cheap suits.
And then casually mentioning Kobe Bryant, adding that no pun intended line that clearly had every intention behind it, especially for those who already knew about the history between Kobe and Brandy, which made the whole comparison hit even harder than it sounded on the surface. In just a few sentences, he painted a full picture. Laid out a whole situation without directly saying it.
Mase looking like he from The Simpsons, and Camron looked like he just had a stroke.
And positioned himself inside that story with zero hesitation, no second guessing, no concern about how it might be received. And that's where things started getting dangerous. Because while he was speaking freely, moving like it was just conversation, he was completely unaware of how that moment was going to be interpreted once it reached the wrong ears. And that lack of awareness is what pushed everything toward the edge. Because the reality is, Mase was operating in his own lane.
Y'all gonna get in that, period. Y'all gonna get everything y'all needed to get done because y'all acting like...
Focused on his own version of events, not realizing there were other variables in play. And the biggest one was the type of person that always causes problems in situations like this. The mutual friend, the one who hears everything, sees everything, and for whatever reason cannot stay quiet.
I'm coming out the closet. There's 3 niggas that look real attractive to me right now. Camron, Mase, and Sean.
The kind of person who turns small moments into big situations by passing information along at the worst possible time. And according to everything being said, Ray J knows exactly who that person is. He knows the name, he knows the role they played, and the only reason it hasn't been exposed yet is because he chose, at least for now, to hold back, which is wild considering what comes next.
That Shine, bro. That thought he was, believe me, that thought that with something.
Because when it comes to letting things slide, Ray J is not known for showing that kind of restraint at all. But before we even get to Ray J and the way he responded, there's another layer to this that people can't ignore. It's because sitting in that same room, in that same moment, Shine had his own story to tell about Brandy Norwood, and his version hit completely different.
I seen that Camron checking because he was trying to get at his homeboy girlfriend.
Not casual, not playful, but rooted in something much deeper. Something that started way before fame, way before industry connections, back when he was just a kid trying to picture a life bigger than the one he was born into. Because for Shine, this wasn't just about knowing Brandy. This was about growing up seeing her as the dream, the face on the screen, the voice coming through the TV. The kind of presence that makes a young kid from Brooklyn stop and believe there's something more out there, something beyond the blocks he knew every day.
I don't know that like that, but I know if that come to LA, like I don't know where he at, but I know where Camron and Mase at.
This wasn't some random connection he stumbled into later in life. This was something that lived inside him early, something that shaped how he saw the world before he even had the words to explain it. Because when you grow up watching someone like Brandy on MTV, on shows like Moshe, on Bet, everywhere.
Like, I crash out for B. I crash out for my mom, I crash out for my pops, and I crash out for what's right.
That image becomes part of your reality, even if you've never met her. And for Shine, that image turned into motivation. Into something almost symbolic, not just a person, but a representation of what was possible. And that kind of connection doesn't fade easily. It stays with you as you grow, as you move, as you build your life step by step. So when his life took its own turns, when he went through everything he went through, 10 years locked up, losing time, then coming back out and rebuilding himself piece by piece.
Stooges, and y'all looking real attractive. So when I see y'all bet not have that skirt on.
That early vision didn't disappear, it stayed there. And when he finally reached a level where that dream wasn't just something on a screen anymore, but something real, something within reach, he didn't hesitate for a second. He moved with intention, with clarity, with what he himself described as a sniper mentality. Focused, direct, no wasted motion, no second guessing. Because to him, this wasn't just another situation. This was something that had been forming long before the industry ever knew his name. And that's where the tone of the conversation starts to shift. Because what began as storytelling, as old memories being revisited, suddenly carries more weight than it seemed at first. Because now it's not just jokes or loose talk. It's layered with history, perspective, and meaning. And in most cases, that still wouldn't be enough to cause a situation like this. Most cases, it would stay exactly what it looked like. Just a podcast doing what podcasts do. People talking, laughing, sharing stories. Nothing more than that. Harmless, low stakes, something that fades out of the timeline within a day or two. But this wasn't just any situation. This involved Brandy, and more importantly, it involved her family. And that's where everything changes. Because somewhere in Los Angeles, Ray J sees something on his phone. Something that instantly flips a switch. And from that moment, there's no calm response. No waiting, no measured reaction. It's just immediate energy. The kind that builds fast and hits hard. Because Ray J isn't wired to sit back quietly when something feels out of line. Especially when it touches someone close to him. And the speed at which that reaction happened probably shocked even the people watching it unfold in real time. From that point forward, there was no version of events where he was going to stay silent. No scenario where he steps back and lets things pass, because that's simply not how he operates. And anyone who knows his history already understands that. This is someone who reacts in the moment, openly, loudly, without filtering things down into safe statements or controlled messaging. There's no waiting 48 hours for a polished response. No publicist stepping in to smooth things out. That version of Ray J doesn't exist. Never has, and never will. He's the type of person who goes straight to the source, straight to the camera, and says exactly what's on his mind in real time.
Yes.
No edits, no hesitation. And that's what makes situations like this escalate so quickly. Because once he's activated, it doesn't stop at one sentence. It builds, it stacks, it keeps going. Every thought turning into another statement. Every reaction turning into something bigger. And that energy is exactly what pushed this situation from a simple podcast moment into something way more serious than anyone in that room probably expected when they first started talking. So when the news about what Camron and Mase said on that podcast finally reached Ray J, the real question was never whether he was going to respond. Everybody already knew that part. The only question was how long it would take before somebody had to physically take the mic out of his hand, because once he gets going, there's no pause button, no slowdown. Why? And that's exactly what happened when he jumped straight onto his own platform, a streaming app called Rayball, and just let everything out in real time. No filter, no management stepping in, no second guessing. Just raw emotion pouring out directly to whoever was watching. And the intensity of it made it clear this wasn't just a reaction. This felt like something he had been holding in, waiting for the right moment to finally release. He said everything, and he didn't hold back even for a second. The volume high, the energy aggressive, every sentence stacked on top of the next, like he was trying to make sure nothing got left unsaid. And the way he delivered it made it feel like this wasn't just about one moment on a podcast. This felt deeper, like layers of frustration building up over time. And now, all of it was coming out at once in front of a live audience that wasn't even fully prepared for how far he was willing to go with it. And considering what comes later, considering the kind of wild, over-the-top things he was about to say next, that earlier description of things getting ugly suddenly doesn't even feel strong enough. Because the direction this was heading in was way beyond normal reactions. It was unpredictable, intense, and honestly hard to look away from once it started unfolding, because every new sentence raised the stakes even higher and made people wonder just how far he was actually going to take it. But here's where things take an unexpected turn. Because after unloading all of that energy, after putting everything out there on his own platform, the reaction from the internet wasn't what you would expect. It didn't explode the way moments like this usually do. People didn't stop and focus on it the way he probably thought they would. Instead, the timeline just kept moving. New topics, new clips, new distractions, like nothing major had just happened, and that silence, that lack of reaction, is what shifted his approach completely. That's the exact moment he went from reacting emotionally to thinking strategically. Because if his message wasn't reaching the people it needed to reach on his own platform, then he had to take it somewhere bigger, somewhere louder, somewhere the entire culture was already tuned in and paying attention. And he knew exactly where that place was without even thinking twice about it. The target was The Breakfast Club, not just any show, not just a random interview spot, but one of the most recognized platforms in hip-hop culture, the place where statements get made official, where people go to put things on record, to address situations directly, to speak in a way that echoes across the entire industry. Because when you step into that space, you're not just talking, you're broadcasting to everyone who matters at the same time. And while he was already gearing up for that move, still heated from watching Camron and Mase laugh about his family on camera, he didn't slow down in the meantime. Instead, he sat down for what was described as an unfiltered interview. And that word doesn't even begin to cover what actually happened, because what followed wasn't just unfiltered, it was raw in a way that felt almost too real. Like watching someone speak without any guardrails at all, live, direct, and completely unedited. It turned into one of those moments where you instinctively pause for a second, almost trying to process what you're hearing, then immediately lean back in because you realize this is something you can't look away from. Every second pulling you deeper into it, every statement making it more intense. And by that point, it was clear this situation had moved way past a simple response and into something much bigger that was still unfolding in real time. That was the first reaction people threw out, calling it corny. But when you really look at what Ray J was about to unleash over the next several minutes, that word almost feels too soft, too calm. Like it doesn't even come close to matching the level of intensity that was building up. Because the way he was talking, the way everything came out, it felt rehearsed without being scripted. Like he had been running this moment over and over in his head, just waiting for the exact trigger to finally let it fly. And once that trigger hit, there was no holding back at all. Meanwhile, Camron and Mase were in their own space, comfortable, relaxed, laughing through the conversation like it was nothing serious. But that exact energy is what set everything off, because to Ray J that laugh wasn't harmless. It wasn't just part of the vibe. That laugh meant something. It felt like a signal, like confirmation of how they were treating the situation. And once he locked onto that, he didn't need any more context, didn't need more clips, didn't need time to think. His mind was already made up instantly. The response came fast and direct. No build-up, no slow escalation. He went straight into it. Targeting everything from their appearance to their style, tearing into details like it was all part of the bigger issue. The way he delivered it made it clear this wasn't random. This was a full release of everything he had been holding in, one thought leading into the next with zero hesitation. The kind of momentum that only happens when someone finally decides to say everything they've been sitting on. At one point, he even shifted into comparisons, describing Mase in a way that was meant to stick, something exaggerated, something visual, something designed to get reactions. And even though it sounded wild on the surface, it still tied back into the same core message he was pushing. Because underneath all the energy, underneath all the loud delivery, there was actually a point being made. And that point was about respect, or in his view, the lack of it. To him, this wasn't just about jokes or storytelling. This was about a pattern, about using women's names and personal history as content without thinking about the consequences, assuming the culture wouldn't push back hard enough to make it matter. And that's where he drew the line, deciding that this time there would be pushback, this time it wouldn't just slide, and he made it clear in the loudest way possible that he was going to be the one applying that pressure. And then things started expanding even further, because now all three names were fully in his focus: Camron, Mase, and Shine. Each of them getting their own mention, their own moment in the spotlight as he went through everything one by one. And even when someone tried to bring a little balance into the situation, pointing out that Shine had told this story before, and that maybe it wasn't meant the way it sounded this time, Ray J didn't slow down, didn't reconsider, because by that point his decision was already locked in. But buried inside all that intensity, inside all the loud statements and rapid-fire reactions, there was actually something more grounded starting to come through, something more focused. Because Ray J wasn't just venting, he was building an argument, pointing out what he saw as hypocrisy, and to support that, he started bringing up a moment from the past involving Camron, a moment where, according to him, Cam had handled a similar situation the right way, with immediate respect, no hesitation, no confusion, just clear action that aligned with the standards the culture expects. And that's what made this part hit differently, because now it wasn't just emotion, it was comparison, it was calling out inconsistency, showing the difference between how things were handled before and how they were being handled now. And once that angle entered the conversation, it pushed everything into an even deeper level. Because now it wasn't just about what was said, it was about what should have been done. And that shift is what took this situation from loud to something much more calculated and serious. Ray J then shifted the whole tone again by bringing up something very specific, something that wasn't just emotion but memory. Because he claimed he had personally seen Camron check someone for stepping out of line with his homeboy's girlfriend, reportedly tied to a situation involving Trejo Wilson. And according to Ray J, there was no long discussion, no back and forth, no debate at all. Cam shut it down instantly, made it clear that certain lines don't get crossed, that you don't move like that when it comes to people connected to your circle. And that moment alone proved something important. It proved Cam understands the code, not just in theory but in action, because he had already enforced it before without hesitation. And that's exactly where the contradiction comes in. Because if someone knows the code, if they've applied it and stood on it when it mattered for their own circle, then turning around and laughing about another man's sister in a public conversation starts to look completely different. It starts to feel like the rules are being picked and chosen depending on the situation. And that's the part Ray J locked onto. Because from his perspective, that's not how this works. You don't protect your side and then treat someone else's family like it's just content, like it's open for discussion. Because once you do that, you're not standing on principles anymore. You're just moving based on convenience. And when you strip away all the noise, all the shouting, all the dramatic delivery, what he was actually saying underneath it all was pretty direct, pretty clear, and honestly hard to ignore. Because the argument itself makes sense. If the culture operates on a certain code, then that code applies across the board. Not just when it benefits you, not just. Involved, it has to stay consistent, or it loses all meaning. And that's exactly what he was calling out in real time, even if the way he delivered it made it feel chaotic on the surface. But instead of stopping there, instead of keeping it at the level of principle and argument, he pushed things even further, adding another layer that immediately raised the tension. Because now he started referencing locations, casually mentioning that he knew where Camron and Mase move around. He's talking about Vegas like it was familiar territory, like he had a clear idea of where they could be found. And that kind of detail shifts the energy instantly, because now it's not just words, it starts to feel closer, more direct, more personal in a way that people pay attention to differently. And then after all the build-up, after all the statements, the comparisons, the energy, he dropped the one line that really explains everything behind this reaction. Not dressed up, not exaggerated, just straight to the point, making it clear that this wasn't about attention, not about trying to go viral, not about inserting himself into someone else's moment. This was about family. About hearing his sister's name being brought into a conversation for laughs, and deciding that silence wasn't an option, and that simple reasoning is what grounded everything else he said, no matter how intense the delivery got around it. Because even though the way he expressed it came off as chaotic, loud, and unpredictable, that core idea stayed consistent the entire time. That this wasn't random, it wasn't for show, it was a reaction built on something personal, something he wasn't willing to ignore. And once that switch flipped, there was no slowing it down, no cooling off period, just continuous momentum pushing everything forward. And that's what makes the whole situation feel layered. Because on one side, you have the explosive delivery, the constant escalation, the back-to-back statements that kept building tension. But on the other side, you have a clear through line, the reason that ties it all together, and that's what carried into everything that followed. The app, to the interview, to the extra clips that kept dropping, each one adding more fuel, each one showing that he wasn't backing off at any point. By the time everything stacked up, the list of what he had already said and done was long. He had criticized appearances, called people out directly, referenced past situations, and made it clear exactly who he was addressing, naming Camron, Mase, and Shine as part of the situation. And the energy behind all of it stayed locked in, focused, intense, like someone running purely on adrenaline without ever hitting pause. And at that stage, it was obvious this wasn't just a reaction anymore. This had turned into a full situation that the entire culture was now watching closely. The questions kept stacking up as Ray J kept going. And at this point, nothing felt off limits anymore. He was calling out everything from Shine's post-prison image to the way people present themselves publicly. Even throwing in references that felt completely unexpected, like bringing up Pulp Fiction in a moment nobody saw coming. Then doubling back with a disclaimer about it, like that would somehow balance the energy. And then pushing even further with statements that crossed into territory so wild it felt like he was just letting his mind run without limits. All while still pointing ahead to that planned appearance on The Breakfast Club like the main event was still waiting to happen. And through all of that chaos, all of the loud moments, the exaggerations, the reactions that made people pause and rewind just to make sure they heard it right, still something real sitting underneath everything. Something that didn't need all the extra layers to be understood. Because at the center of this situation, you have two powerful voices in Camron and Mase. Men with major platforms who speak on culture, on people, on relationships, and then you have Brandy Norwood. Someone who has built a legacy, but doesn't live her life trying to be part of ongoing podcast discussions. Someone who didn't ask to have her name circulating in that kind of conversation. And that contrast is what made everything hit differently once it reached Ray J. Because beyond all the spectacle, beyond the delivery and the way it unfolded, the reaction itself came from a place that most people understand instantly. That feeling of hearing someone you care about being talked about like they're just part of the story, like there's something to be used for entertainment. And that's where everything shifted from content into something personal, something emotional, something that doesn't get filtered or slowed down because it hits too close to ignore. The idea of protecting family isn't something people sit down and calculate. It's automatic, it's built in, something that activates without warning. And when it does, it doesn't always come out clean or controlled. Sometimes it looks exactly like this. Loud, messy, intense, but real at its core. And that's why that one simple line he said in the middle of everything stood out more than anything else. Because it didn't need any extra energy around it. It didn't need exaggeration. It didn't need references or comparisons. It just was what it was, direct and impossible to misunderstand. No theatrics, no extra layers, just the fact that it involved his sister, and that alone was enough to explain everything that followed. And when you strip everything else away, that's the part that stays. That's the part people remember after all the noise fades out. Because it's the only piece of the whole situation that doesn't rely on performance. It relies on something real that doesn't need to be explained twice. And when you look at Ray J's history, everything he's been part of, the music, the reality shows, the viral moments, the controversies that made people talk, laugh, debate, all of it. This moment stands apart in a different way, not because it was louder, not because it was more chaotic, but because of that single, grounded reason behind it that gave everything else context. That's why this situation isn't just another moment that disappears after a few days. Because it connects to something deeper than just entertainment, it taps into how people respond when lines get crossed, how quickly things can escalate when personal boundaries are involved, and how even in the middle of all the noise, there's usually one simple reason driving everything forward. If you made it this far, you already know this wasn't just another story. This was layered, messy, and impossible to ignore once it started unfolding. So let me know what you think about the whole situation. Did things go too far? Or was this always bound to happen? And if you want more breakdowns like this, tap in with Cloud Chase. Hit that like button. Subscribe and stay locked because there's always another story coming right behind this one.